Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on Django apps, and tonight we're going to continue on the homeschool application and work on an ability to delete something. It's per a customer request, so we're going to work through delete views and class-based views and all that kind of good stuff. So hopefully if that's interesting to you, you'll stick around and check it out. If you want to stay in touch with me, offline, offline in the sense of not on Twitch, I have stuff that you can follow me on Twitter as MB Lehman. I also have a channel on YouTube, so you can find past recordings, or maybe you're catching this on YouTube now. If you are, please like, subscribe, comment. That does help me out, and I'm happy to engage with people. I try and respond to all the comments that I can. I also want to say thank you to my Patreon patrons. I have a bunch of patrons on Patreon, and they help me cover costs for like podcast hosting and other things that I try and do for the community. And I'm really grateful for their support. If you would like to join them, you can go to patreon.com/mblehman, and that's where you can support me. So the patrons that I do want to thank are Rupert, Andrew, Patrick, Eric, Philip, and Miguel. Thank you very much for helping out. So let's get into the project for today. I have a customer who is in the trialing phase, and she is pointing out a feature that she needs. She was poking around, is a very active user on the site, and has this ability or desire to delete courses. It's something I didn't add into the product initially because I could do it from the Django admin console, and initially my spouse was the only user of this homeschool app that I've built. So when she had to delete a course, I could do it for her. And I did that to get something out there quicker and to be able to build up a school year. And if you're joining me for the first time, this is a reminder that I'm building a homeschool application to help my family and ultimately other families use this as well. But now I'm at this point where I need to let users delete courses because that's going to be an important element of their process, and I don't want to have support requests anytime anybody wants to delete a course. That would be silly. What we have to be careful when doing this is that the way I've modeled a lot of the system is there are a lot of foreign key relationships to a course. And if someone wants to delete a course, it is going to have a bunch of other impacts. It will delete tasks and graded work and grades and all these other things. And we need to make sure that in the scheme that we follow that they can't or are at least aware of what else they're going to be deleting. So that's the plan. I think there are going to be some other gotchas in there of certain relationships that we have to follow and delete and other constraints that we need to add as well. And we'll talk through those as we get there. So because this is about Django app development, you're not necessarily following this to see me build a homeschool application, although maybe some of you are. You're free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development, and I'm happy to answer those as best I can. All right, so with that out of the way, let's jump into the editor and see where we need to go. Actually, maybe before we do that, let's check out an example of what we're trying to delete, and I'm going to show you the admin's point of view, because the admin has an excellent feature that actually does exactly the same kind of warning that I want to display to the customer, and we'll see all of the pieces of data that would be deleted if someone tries to delete a course in the system, and things that we need to take into account and report upon so that the user is at least fully aware of everything that they're about to do. Because the other thing I'm doing with the system is I'm not doing what's called a soft delete. So you might have heard of this, maybe you haven't before, but a soft delete is this idea where you have an extra column or attribute in your database table, maybe something like active or something to that effect. And if it's true, then it's like it's a real object, but with a soft delete, you'd set that to false. And so you'd essentially filter out anything that's been deleted. It's a way to keep data around, but I'm really not interested in doing that. And I just, I think from a privacy perspective, like I really want to probably make it so that if somebody wants to delete their account, I'm going to delete their account and all their stuff. And that has implications for the product, and it means that certain actions are more severe than others, and so people need to be warned appropriately. So we'll make sure that they get the big scary warning. Well, I don't want them to be scary, just informative, and make sure they're aware of what they're about to do. So let's take a look at the application. and we're going to go to the admin to start. And I have some courses already in the system for one of my school years, and oh boy, which one is it going to be? There is a math course that we can probably use as a good example, but I have a number of those apparently, so let's go find out which one I need to actually refer to. So this Math 2 course that's in my test data is representative. I'm not actually going to delete it, but you'll see what it will show. So we want to find in here, there should be a Math 2 course. Here it is. So I'm going to hit the delete button, and the Django admin page is actually going to take me to a second page, and it's going to show me everything that's actually connected to this course. And because of all of these foreign key relationships, and because these fields are not nullable, that means that when I delete this course, it has to keep the database consistency, delete the other things as well. So that means that there is, from a user's perspective, they are saying, I want to delete the course, but they may not realize, oh, I'm actually going to be deleting all of those tasks. I'm going to be deleting everything that's been marked as graded. Maybe they don't care about that one. That might just be that's part of what a task is. These two things kind of pair together. They need to be aware that they're going to delete grades for their student. That's a big deal. Any progress that their student has made, that is also a big deal. So these are the categories of work that we need to report on. I probably will do it something like at least giving people just counts of here's all of the things that are going to be affected by this. And I think that would be a good enough starting point to give the user awareness of, you know, if you do this, this is what this means. Most of the time I suspect that if somebody wants to delete a course, what they're really wanting to do is delete a course they've just made in a mistake. Like they don't actually plan to use it for their school year. There's not going to be anything to report, and so there'll be no reason to warn on that. So we can make it so each of these counts that we're going to display will only optionally appear if there's something there to bring to their attention. There's also, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to consider. In the model relationship, let me bring up that diagram. We've used this quite a number of times, and we'll bring it up again because it's a diagram of everything that comes out of the models in my system. And if you've never seen one of these before, this is a really cool tool. This is not something I built myself. This is a command that comes out of the Django extensions. So I've got it. We can see it in my make file, what the invocation looks like. It's a management command. And so the Django extensions project, which I should have somewhere in here. I even got it open up to the exact command. So this is Django extensions, and you can pip install it and add it to your project, and it gives you all these extra features. Some of them are actual like functionality related, like models you might want to derive from, abstract models. Some of them are actual commands and extensions. This is one of them. It's called graph models, and it requires graphiz and a couple other things, but the end result is that it makes a diagram. So you give it all of the Django apps that you want to be part of that diagram, and it produces what you see here, which shows all of the connections between all of your models and foreign key relationships. And yeah, it can get a little messy, but it does tell the story. So where we are going to be is over here in this course model. Actually, I don't know how well you can see that. Let's zoom in a little bit more. So we're going to be deleting one of these. And this is where you can see it spiders out into all these other things like course resources and course. Actually, this is one that didn't even come up in my math example, but that's definitely another one that will be part of this. So course tasks, and then where it fans out to all of these other bits. So what I also wanted to check is like, do we need to make sure that some other constraint is in play? So there's a connection between a grade level and a course. There's a kind of a many-to-many relationship here that's tracked in the special model table, and that was one that showed up on the admin as this thing with the through model, and there's one of those. I don't know that I mean, and this will be deleted. I don't know that we need to report on it to the user. I don't think that's something they certainly wouldn't care about. And I'm just trying to think, I don't think it means that we need to delete the grade level either, because the grade level could be connected to a bunch of courses. So I'm not going to report on that, and there's not some requirement that a grade level have at least one course, so we don't need to report on that. So it's really the stuff we need to report on. As let me jot some notes in the editor here as comments. So we need to get report on course tasks, and what else did I say? Grades. Oops. I know that's hard to see these comments, so there's certain aspects of my dark theme that I'm still not wild about. Comments don't show up very well. So hopefully you can see that okay, but maybe not. So grades and coursework and course resources are one of the other ones that doesn't show with this math course, but is part of the relationship diagram. So those are the 4 things that I want to be able to warn users about. The actual mechanics of deleting stuff, that's really not a big challenge in this process. We're going to use a class-based view. We're going to use a DeleteView, and a DeleteView already has a lot of the stuff that you want. If you do a GET request, it renders a page that is the warning page, which is where we will provide all the context for the numbers. I'll get to your question in just a second, Leo Resende 77. Hope I didn't butcher your name too bad. And so then the actual, when you're using the DeleteView, the post request is the thing that actually does the course deletion. So we've already got the 2-step mechanism in here. We just need to wire all that together. Okay, let's get to this question here in the chat. And how do I divide local and production environments? That's a good one. For all of my different environment management, I use the same settings file. So in my project, I have a single settings file, and I guess I actually have 2 settings files. One settings file is just for unit testing. I'm actually doing automated testing. You can see the way that this file is structured is it pulls in from the settings here and then overrides some stuff that I definitely never want to be on when I'm testing. For example, I never want to send out email to my actual email service provider while I'm writing a test. That would be bad. So I hard code it there to make sure that I can't accidentally do that. But for my regular local development here on this machine and my production setup, I'm using environment variables for everything. So I use a project called, what's the package called? Let's see. We can go take a look. Django Environ is the one that I use. There are a couple that do something similar, but this is one that I know works, and it gives you access to this environment class, or I guess more accurately, this instance, which the documentation eventually conventionally calls env. And once you have that, then whenever you want to get access to your settings, you call env with the environment variable name that you want to pull from. So by doing this, I can get all of my local development settings using environment variables. I can get all of my production settings also using environment variables, and it's just a matter of where you set them. I can't actually show you my full local env right now because it has actual secrets in it that I don't want to go rotate a bunch of keys and things. But what I can show you is there is an environment sample file that I keep, or example file that I keep with my project. So if I were to lose my settings and stuff, this is a tracking of everything that I would need to kind of go back and recreate a production environment. And you can see I've kind of got placeholders in here to show, this is where your real secret data would go. And this secret key, just so everybody's clear, this is one, I don't care that this is committed. It doesn't really matter because this is not what I'm using in my actual production environment. But Django needs a secret key in order to be happy. So you can see that this is the way this stuff is configured. And anytime I want to go change, something that is going to vary on production, like for example, the stripe keys, for doing credit cards, that's where I would go and in Heroku use their config section and set the environment variables. So hopefully that answers your question of how I divide local and production. As to your other question about does the Django extension go into production, yes, it does. We can see it's one of the installed applications that's here. It's required to make this work. It's required to make the management commands available all the time. I mean, I guess you could do some stuff to say, like, if it's in debug, include the installed app, otherwise include it in installed apps, otherwise leave it out. But I don't. And the part of the reason for that is the system also has other stuff that I might want to use for the actual application. I mentioned there are some model extensions. So there are different kinds of, well, maybe this isn't the documentation I was thinking of, but there are somewhere in here, there are different items that you can use to actually be a part of your Django application, not just tools to help you, but actual stuff and code that you want to run. So that's one reason why you'd want to keep it in the installed apps list all the time. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, so let's we've got our list of things that we want to be able to display as something we want to delete. Let's talk about where we want to actually put the deletion code or the template stuff, and then get into it. So I want to restart the local development server here, and we'll go look at the area where these courses are defined. And we've got a bunch that we can use as targets of things I can delete. I've added a bunch of these as like just junk. When we get into an actual course, I already have a pattern for this. So it was important for my spouse to be able to delete tasks and not bug me bug is not the right word. Not ask me every time she wanted to delete one, could she do that? And so I have in this area, anytime I'm in the edit page, there's a delete button here. Oh, great. I'm glad I answered your question. There is this delete button here that will take the user to a page and saying, do you want to delete this? Actually, why not? Let's go to that page. So we have this pattern of here is this thing. If this is the confirmation page, and this is where we're going to put the same kind of messaging information to let them know that this is what you're about to delete. So it'll say delete course, and then it'll probably, in this scenario, I think we don't even need to have this description thing. The description is just mostly because of the tasks, but we could say delete course and then give the course name instead of this task label. And then we could say, by deleting this course, you're going to also delete this and this and this, or count this many of these and this many of these. And so we'll put that information there. We'll have the same kind of, are you sure? We won't need this label because all of that will be in the kind of the paragraph or bullet points that will go above. And then there'll be the delete button that will actually do the post. So it's a pretty bread and butter kind of feature. Like you're probably very familiar with delete functionality in lots of places. But I just want you to be aware of the patterns that I've already have established in place that will guide us as we're doing some of this stuff. Okay, so we, I think, have everything that I think we need in order to actually get started on this. So let's get to it. I'm wondering, is there already a DeleteView in place here? I bet there is. The course task, yeah. So that was this course task DeleteView is that page you were already seeing. And we can probably model some of this after that. I'm curious why I don't see the template here. There's probably already, it's probably a conventional pattern. It's been so long since I worked on this DeleteView. I mean, this is one of the early requested features from my spouse. So I honestly don't, I'm going to have to remind myself a bunch of these things. So what I'm going to do to start is I'm going to take this chunk of code and we're going to go to where the course views are. And I think I'm going to follow, yeah, all right. In my convention for putting out views, I'm kind of following CRUD. in my layout in my views files. So my first view here is a create view. My next view is the detail view, which corresponds to the R, which is read. You can see the detail view there. There's the edit view following that, which means that the natural place to complete the CRUD layout is at the bottom here, as the to complete the D in CRUD. So I think we've got that much. You know, I don't know. This is definitely not the right query set right now. I don't actually know that we need this next URL parsing, because I think there's only going to be a single place that we are going to delete courses. And where we need to send them back is an interesting question, probably back to the school year, but we can get to that in a minute. So yeah, trying to figure out what else we need. And my editor is complaining because I've got a class with the same view name right now. So we'll do this, and we can then also do maybe this. Okay. So that's a view, and that's probably way more copying than I would like to do, but it's a start. And I think the next logical step anyway, is to back this up with some tests. So let's go into the test file where this would live. Excuse me. And let's find where the model should go, the test case should go. Somewhere around here. Yep, here's the edit view. So we'll use this as the starting point because it has a lot of good tests in it already. And we'll paste it right here and say change this test case name to DeleteView. All right. So we've got a starting point, and it has all of the attributes that I care about. In fact, I feel like that edit view is actually missing a test. It's missing the do you have the right access level? That bugs me. We might need to go back and add that later. So I try and check that only the people who are allowed to get into stuff can actually get into stuff, and there should be a test for that. I'm going to check this edit view to make sure I'm doing that properly. Okay, I am at least doing this, so the test that I would add here should pass. Oh, good question. Cascade. Cascade is people have a love-hate relationship with Cascade, I think. I think if you get to a certain company size, like a certain amount of data, Cascade can become like a pretty terrifying thing to people. Imagine if you don't anticipate where your cascade is going to happen, and you end up deleting, like spidering out and deleting tons and tons and tons of data because of Cascade. I think that Cascades are probably a really good way for a reasonably sized app to maintain data integrity. Because the other option, what is the other option? Or I guess there are a handful. So let's pause and take a look at that. Django model Cascade. I'm sure that'll get us close. So there's some other choices beyond Cascade. And come on, there's got to be a listing here somewhere. Here they are. Okay. Ooh, I don't know what this one is. That's new in 3.1. What is that? I'll have to read about that. Well, maybe not on the stream, but I'm about to talk to you about something that I'm not fully informed on. That's interesting. So Cascade is the behavior when you want a foreign key and you want that data to always be filled. Like it doesn't make sense for it to be not filled. Like in the case of my example here, I have a course, and a course can, it has many tasks. And so the foreign key is on the course task, and it doesn't make sense to leave a task around if the course is gone, right? Because the task represents work that you were going to do for that course. So it's a perfectly rational case there. So in that scenario, Cascade says, if you delete the course, go ahead and delete the tasks. Then you have other stuff which says, make sure you set this up so that if you ever deleted something, that you would actually raise some integrity error, which is basically saying like, I never intend to delete this thing, and if I did, if anything tried to delete it, that would be bad, and there should be an integrity error that will prevent a transaction from completing and really messing up your data. Again, I don't really know what restrict is, so I'm going to set that one aside because I just don't want to speak unintelligently to anything there. There is set null is the other common one. So, your other real option with a foreign key is to set null equal true on it. So that will allow in your database table to, instead of having a foreign key, allow a null entry there. Again, if I had a course task that had no course that was like null, it doesn't make any sense. So this is, some people will say like null is like better for maybe some data safety of like you don't inadvertently delete stuff that you didn't intend to, but it leads to a different kind of problem, which is like orphaned data. And I don't know if that's the official like term that you might get out there, but that's the impact of it is like you could have data that's left around in your database that nothing can really access, or I mean you could access it, but it may not be used in any scenario. So the way that I've modeled my stuff, I'm using Cascade pretty heavily because, like I said, if somebody wanted to come and say, "Hey, delete my account," and I'm going to bring GDPR, the General Data Privacy, the EU law about data protection, and say, if you don't delete it, I'm going to bring like a lawsuit against you. Well, I don't want to be in that scenario where someone would have that ability to do that. So I'm definitely going to make it so that it's easy to completely expunge someone from the database. That's my plan anyway. So hopefully that gives you an idea of why I use Cascade. I do think that it has a lot of benefit, but you have to be careful with it, and it has to like make sure you plan out that you've thought through all of the on delete behavior of what's going to happen, because if you don't, you might get surprised about stuff. Okay, we've got we don't have that test, so we might add the test for the delete view and then come back for this other view that yeah, well we'll not get hung up on the edit view right now. So let's start with this one right here. I want it to be so that just like any other action in the system, you can't do a lot of things unless you are authenticated. So this is a general protection I put on almost all of the views, with the natural exceptions of like the login view and the policy, the privacy policy and terms of service and other things that are meant to be for anybody. But for most of the application, for actual users, I wanted to be login protected. So we've got a test here. So the first thing I think we need to do is, right now this test is pointing at edit, and we need to change this so that we actually have the delete view wired up to a URL route. So let's go to the courses URLs and connect it. And I'm going to try and follow, I'm sure there's already a delete in here with a certain naming, so let's try and follow the same pattern. So we've got path, and it's called task delete. We're already in the courses app, so here's where we're going to put delete right here. And we don't need the task UUID, so I'm just going to call it like this, and we're going to simplify it to delete, because we're in the app, the courses app namespace already. So the reverse of this will be delete. Courses delete, sorry. So let's delete the word task from here. That's going to point it to our new view that we have. And that should be enough, I think, to get this test going. In fact, I think looking at this path right now, actually, let's try doing, yeah. So black reformatted, it fit in a single line, which is what I was hoping for. What we're saying is we're going to expect a UUID for the course, and it's going to be at this delete route. So in the actual application, this is rooted at courses. So this would be courses some UUID/delete is what that view will look like, view route, and is wired up to the right view, and it has the right name. So I think I'm done with the URLs file entirely. So let's change this to delete. And since this is just testing the authentication part of this test should actually pass now, because we have a route and it has the right Mixin class on it, because I copied it from somewhere else. So that test was really testing, is this login required Mixin added to the class? And it is. Now it's this next step that's going to fail. So if I do delete here, again, the delete, a get does make sense because we want to have that confirmation page. So we're going to start with that, and we'll do this, and it's probably going to give either a template error or, nope, not even there yet, because it's the query set problem. So I'm going to go up to one of these earlier views and see if I have, looks like I didn't refactor this to look for a particular query set, which is kind of lame. As you can see, the query set that I use here, it's kind of the same pattern. The way that I have to check if the user is allowed to look at this is that I have to go to the grade levels that belong to this user for the school that they're in, and then say, does the grade level and the UUID, can I find a set that matches? And that replicates over to here as well. It's the same exact kind of code. And the difference is that this one does some prefetching. And I'm wondering, is the create doesn't have one because it doesn't actually have to get a course yet. It's actually the one that's doing the creation, right? So that doesn't make any sense to have that. But I think that what we could do perhaps is make a little Mixin or something that can ensure that that logic that I've been copying from place to place is not replicated, because this is something that is going to be consistent. All right, so what? What would we call this? I guess this would be the it's like a course. We want to get the course query set. Is that accurate? I'm not sure it is. All right, let me sketch it out what I think it might be, because what I'm afraid of is like, is this going to, does the distinct order matter with the prefetch? I don't think so, but I'm not positive on that. The worst that can happen is we break some tests and we have to go back and fix it. So let's start at the detail. We'll do the extraction. We'll run the tests. I mean, we've got a pretty good set of tests here. There's 84 tests here. They only take a little bit to run. One of those is the new test that was broken, so I'm not surprised that there's a failure. And let's do the refactoring and then see if we can apply it to our delete view so we can get some code reuse. So I want to add, well, the first step is to do the refactoring is to create the method that I want. So I want to say get course query set. And it looks like, wow, I am consistent, because look, there's a get course task query set. So this is a pattern that I've clearly applied before. In fact, I want to go look at that one. Course task query set. All right, where's that thing defined? All right, well, at least I am a consistent human being, I suppose. So this one is a general function that I used and probably used it as a function because there are other function-based views. So maybe rather than a mixin, we should actually check on this first to make sure that the courses, I don't know if there are any courses that are using function-based views that could benefit from the same thing. So actually, let's give ourselves a little bit more room for a moment. We don't actually need that test open. So we've got the course detail view. So for the moment, I'm thinking of using this as the method name, but let's see if we can do a function instead. So we'll use the same thing in edit for sure. We'll use the same thing in delete. And I'm wondering if this is the course copy, which that's something different. Man, I forgot there was a copy ability in here. That's fascinating. I wonder if that still works. Got code. Okay. Anyway, it looks like it's only for class-based views, so we'll just use the Mixin approach for now. And what I'm going to do with this Mixin is in fact, I'm going to take all of this stuff and we're going to use it completely, because the only difference that I'm going to want for the detail view anyway is to take apply the prefetch later. So we'll save that. Black will condense it down to something smaller. So now we've got this get course query set, and it is the functionality that I would expect. So we'll see how this will work with the actual stuff. So now if we say we've got the course query set, I'll call it that for now, and self get course query set. And I see that there's some kind of raid going on. I don't actually know. I've not experienced many raids, so welcome those of you that are raiding. I'm working on some DeleteView for my Django app here. So that's what we're looking at. And I'm doing some refactoring before I'm actually getting to the DeleteView, because I've got some replicated logic, and this is the third time that I'm using this particular bit of logic. So I don't know how much of it will, I don't want to repeat it over and over and over again. And so that's what we're working on cleaning up. So now that we have this course query set, I want to take this and I want to return the course query set, but I still want to get the prefetch that was important for this particular delete or this particular detail view. So I'm going to take that and paste it here and join those together. That's a good question. I don't think that I use LSP. And I say that like uncertain because I'm actually not sure what I use. uCompleteMe is the short answer. So I use whatever uCompleteMe does, and I think uCompleteMe uses Jedi, but I'm not sure if Jedi uses any LSP. So I'm not 100% confident on the answer to your question there. So I apologize for not knowing that one for certain. All right, so we've got the stuff refactored here. And so this is the simplified version. We now have this course query set. And no problem. Answer the best I can. If I know more, I'd be happy to expand upon that, but I just don't. What else do we have? We've got well, let's go back to our test file and see. Hopefully there's no new failures. Still should have that one failure from the test case that we're adding, but nothing new. Well, thanks for hopping in for a minute. Appreciate you being here. So it looked like that was a successful method extraction. I think the next thing I want to do is we want to turn this into a Mixin class. And so we'll say course query set Mixin, like that. And then we're going to totally pull out this method and drop it in this class. I have a feeling MyPy is going to freak out because it's going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's the challenge with Mixin classes, is that I use MyPy to do static analysis, and well, MyPy sees this as an object, which they're right, it's an object, but since it's an object, it doesn't know what the request property, the request attribute is, which is kind of a pain in the butt. But we can fix this by saying if type checking, and we can define what request is going to be. And so I'm just going to give it an HTTP request. I don't know if I'll need to import that or not. But that's enough to make MyPy happy to hint at here's what the type is. So now we have this mixin, and we need to include the mixin. And you want to put, because of the way that Python does method resolution order, you always want to put your mixins before your base class, which is why this mixin is first, and then this mixin, and then the actual detail view. I'm not going to go into MRO, but just take it at face value that you want mixins to be before your base class, listed when you're doing inheritance. Again, this stuff should still pass. All I did was move the code to a different class and then made the thing inherit from that. And we have just the same one failure. The benefit now, though, is we should be able to go to the edit view and add the course query set mixin like that, and change this. In fact, in this scenario, we don't have to add any prefetching. So we can delete this code and then say self get course query set. And that should still be the same with that one failure. All right, cool. So we're getting there. We're ready to go correct that failure, I think, or we're going to at least get closer to it. So the edit view is now in place. That's now got the right thing. We can move down to the detail view, or excuse me, the delete view, and say course query set mixin. And now when we're at the get query set, we can return self get course query set. All right. When we run this test, though, it's still going to fail. Why is it going to fail? Because there's no template yet. And so it's probably going to say, I don't know what you're doing. All right, so there is a template pattern that is expected here. And so because we're using a delete view, I'm just going to use the pattern, the conventional pattern that comes with the delete view, and create this template. And this is where all of our confirmation data that I've been talking about is going to go, that we'll populate in a minute. So let's go to the templates. We'll go to the courses, and I'm going to probably copy from one of the existing delete templates that I've already got, and we'll create our new thing, which is the name of this has to be course because that's the model, and then what the delete view is looking for on a get request is confirm delete is the pattern we need to complete, and then we've got this. And we'll go ahead and change the little bits of this here. Course, whoops, I don't need course J, I need course. And, well, we can populate some of these other bits in a minute. Make sure that I think now that all of this stuff is in here, we have everything that we need. And with any luck, that was what was required to make that test that was failing pass. All right, great. We can also, we haven't changed the post yet, but this is good stuff. So if we run all the tests for this file, we've got back to 100% green, and that's a good place to be. I don't like to be dealing with too many failing tests for too long. That's not a good spot. Okay, so I said that there are bits of data that we want to include on this delete confirmation page, and those are going to be counts. So what I want to include is I've got some to-dos somewhere in this file. We'll go take these to-dos now and put them with the new view. Okay, right here. So we need to put these things into the context. But I guess before we can do that, we actually need context. So there's a get context data method that we can include. And so we'll start doing this. We'll take little baby steps. So we've got the query set. The way I kind of view this is like, how's this view going to be processed? What is the order of which I expect these things to happen? So as a course delete view is going to come up, it first is going to do the access check to see, do I have a real course that I can get? And that's where the get query set stuff comes in. The next thing it's going to want to do is ultimately like render that content. That's where get context data comes in, because the context data is going to be mixed into the rendering process. So that's why I'm listing that second. And then the success URL, which I really think is not going to require the details, is going to be the last little bit there. So that's why I have this ordered that way. We want to put all of those counts into the context. This is where it's going to go, and I'm just moving the to-dos closer to where this is to see this. So let's do this. If someone has gotten this far, if they've gone through the get course query set, we now can trust, and I'm going to write that test a little bit later, that they are allowed to see numbers related to this. So we need to walk through and do a bunch of count queries, basically, on various bits of this in order to populate the context. So let's assert on the things that I expect to be in the context when we're done. We want to assert that in the context, we will have, I'll just say task count. That should be sufficient. And I want that to equal 1. Right now, that's not going to exist in the context at all. So we'll get a key error when we run the test saying it's not there. So let's go fill that in. So we have context here. This is the point at which we're going to add to it. We've got the task count, and we're going to say, what are we going to say? I can never remember. Is the object that's available for deletion, is it as self.instance or self.object? Or I guess I could get the UUID. There's a lot of ways I could get this, but let's try, I think it's object, so we'll go with that. So we want to say course task objects filter, and this is where we want to put in our filter. We'll say self.course or actually self.course might work because that's the name of the model, but I'll leave it to the more generic. And then we want the count. So with any luck, I did this correctly, and we'll still get a failure, but at least it'll say, it won't be a key error, it'll just say 1 and 0. Yeah. So get object must have been the right thing. That's good. To make this representative, let's add in a task. Oh yeah, that's a good call. There's a get object method. Thank you, I forgot about that. So let's use the course task factory and associate a task with this course. And I'm just doing this to make sure that we're actually querying the right data. I mean, I could even go so far as to say course task factory to have another instance in there and make sure that it's not going to be 2. I don't know that I really need that level of testing. I'm not like that paranoid about it because, you know, I'm looking at this right now and I can have some trust in myself that I did this right. Maybe that's foolish, but I'm going to do it that way. Okay, so we have course tasks. That's item 1. The next thing that we need, getting back to what we saw in the admin, is we need grades. So how do we get all of the grades that are part of this course? So this is where we need to, I don't remember how this is modeled together. So we get to find, so course task has grades, they're way up here. So they're through a bunch of different relationships. So it's graded work is this guy, which corresponds to a 1-to-1 field for course task, which then goes back to the course. So that's tricky, but I think we can still do the right Django query to get that. So let's say the next thing we want to assert on, let's keep driving it from the test. Let's say we'll call this the grades count. Do I want this to be plural? Tasks count. That's probably more accurate. It's just me being picky. So what goes into making this query work? So we've got the grades count. That's that side. And on the other side, we want to get the grade. So we want to use the grade model, which we might need to import, I don't know. And the filter on that, looking back at the diagram, is it's connected to a graded work, which is connected, well, I've got some pre-fills here from previous stuff that I must have done. So it's connected to a course task, which is just connected to a course. And we say course, and then we can do count on that. And I don't have the grade model imported, so we need to go import that. I believe it's coming from the student models area. And this doesn't tell me, but I'm pretty sure it's from the students app. So we'll say grade. All right. With any luck, this should now be a 0 versus 1 problem rather than a key error. Whoops, it has no attribute course. Well, that I guess answers our earlier question of, is it smart about the auto naming? Clearly, no, it is not. Rerun the test. And 0 and 1. Okay, good. And now we want to do a grade factory. So I've got, this is using Factory Boy. If you've never seen it, I'm not going to cover that today. But there's lots of, so Factory Boy is a really good tool for creating data for your tests. And that's what I'm using here. We want to use the same exact pattern of graded work connected to a course task, connected to a course. And so they can wire that all the way through. So now we should have 1 and 1, although we need to bring in the grade factory, which is in the students app, grade factory. All right. So did that do what we wanted to? Whoops. 2. Why are you 2? Well, that's curious. Oh, you know, okay. All right, you got me. So this is interesting. Because I'm creating a task here, the grade factory, as it walks up the thing of the things that it needs, it has to, I didn't provide a course task, so it also has to create a second course task. That's what's implied through this connection. So we actually can say instead task, and then give this local one a task. And it should be fine that they're the same task. That doesn't really matter. Now we should get 1 and 1, I hope. All right, great. So 2 bits of data down. The next is the coursework. Coursework, in the modeling that I've got for the system, coursework represents anything that the student has done. You can see it's this central model here. The student is coming from this side, the course. This is like the marriage point between what the student is doing and in the school year. So it's a foreign key relationship between the task and the student are both tracked in there along with some date stuff. So we need to look for coursework count. So we'll do another assert. And I apologize, this is probably getting a little monotonous, but it's important to get all of this stuff properly tested in here. And it's just the reality of writing a robust view. So we've got our coursework count. And the path for coursework here, these are all, the nice part is that these are all pretty straightforward foreign key relationships. So these are not hard ORM filters to write. Looking back at it, it's course task up to course. So we can say course task up to course self.object, and then we want the count on there. So that gives that one. And then coursework is another model that I believe is in students area as well, because it's something that mostly affects students. And I don't really like bringing in a lot of models from other apps, but this particular view, it just needs to be really informative, and the best way to do that is to report on all these other models that are affected. There's really no getting around it. So we should get a failure there. Whoops. Not that failure though. It's objects because it's the manager. I expect we should get a failure. Yep, 0 and 1. Because it's basically saying there's nothing that has been completed. But now we can do a coursework factory, and we can complete the course task side of this. So say course task equals task. And coursework factory is not in this file, so we need to bring that into. Whoops. Coursework factory. All right. With any luck, that's another bit of data that we need. All right, cool. And then there's this last one, course resources. These are things that that my spouse wanted to track, like books and any workbooks or whatever, videos. Like I don't exactly know everything that would go in there, but anything associated with a course, and that will also be deleted because there's a foreign key to it. So we need to then have a course resources count. Needs to be 1 as well. So that should fail. It does, because the key is not there. Now we can go to the view and delete the to-do comment and say context course resources count is equal to course resource objects filter, and this one should be just course equal self.object. Whoops. Object. Oh man, cannot type. All right. And now that should still fail because it'll be 0 and 1, but we can add the last factory to complete everything. Course resource factory, and we'll give course equal course. And we got a passing test. Okay, so why do all of this? Seems like, man, that's a lot of tedious testing for this. But I do it because this particular this particular unit test is the only thing that is accurately describing this is the chunk of context that I want to be in my template. It's essentially like a data contract of this is what goes in the template, and I can look at this and say, okay, my template cares about all of these things. And I do that because I don't do like end-to-end testing using Selenium or something and putting all of this together and checking that out. Okay. Good question. So you were asking about when did I switch off of Conductor? Well, I switched, I think it was probably like, what is it, stream 39 or something. I don't know if you're watching, going back into the list. And I switched for a couple of primary reasons. My spouse stopped doing college consulting. And so that particular application was intended to be a tool to help with college consulting. It never quite materialized. I didn't get it far enough out there. She wasn't using it anyway. And then, so she stopped doing that, and I figured, well, what's the point? Like, this is not an industry that I want to continue following because I don't have a personal stake in it. So, time to move on. And so when she switched, and part of the reason why she stopped college consulting is she's now teaching my kids at homeschool. So, I wanted to make something to help her. Because she was having some challenges with a service that she used to use. It wasn't secure. There's other things involved in that. So that's the primary reason for me switching, is I wanted a project to work on, and what better customer to use than the one who lives in your house and is willing to love you and answer your questions when you have silly questions. In terms of the differences, the final version of College Conductor is fairly similar to School Desk. School Desk is the actual name of this service, so that that's how I've branded it. The biggest differences, though, is I've switched hosting. So with College Conductor, I used DigitalOcean, and I did all of the infrastructure myself, using Ansible and some other tools. And it was a good learning experience. Like, it was totally valuable, but I definitely sank a ton of time into making that work well and doing all the monitoring and stuff when I didn't even have customers. So with this project, what I really wanted to do was get in there and deliver something as quickly as possible and not worry about the infrastructure. So with this one, I switched to using Heroku as the hosting. And what that allowed me to do is spend a lot more of my time focusing on the application and let Heroku manage deployment of the web server and all the stuff that goes in that. So frankly, it's been a fabulous decision. I mean, I think I spend probably like $2 more a month on hosting cost. And I know that if I did get a lot more traffic, Heroku would eventually become more expensive. But in terms of bang for my buck, and considering like I am a well-trained software engineer and I know that my time has cost to it, if I really wanted to think of it as like purely what is it worth to me to spend an hour doing this versus that, it kind of became a no-brainer to use Heroku. So at the application level, they're both server rendered applications. The College Conductor one initially was not. It was using Ember and a Django REST API. But I found one of my big learnings out of it. I think I wrote a long article that you can probably find online about lessons from a failed SaaS. You can search my website for that. And one of my big learnings out of that was that trying to maintain a single page application, a rich JavaScript client, and doing a backend ended up leading to a huge amount of duplicative work. I found myself modeling something in the backend, and then I would have to model the same thing on the client side, and that was another big time sink. I mean, I learned a ton from College Conductor, and it was a valuable experience. And there's still a lot of good, interesting content in some of the earlier streams. But if I had to do it all over again, and circumstances were different, maybe I probably wouldn't have even started this. But I have a whole bunch of different life circumstances, so that's why this exists. Okay, I think we've got. I now have. That's the stream episode where I talked about this. So I think I spent one where I just talked about it on a video. If you don't have time for that, there's also an article. Let's see. Surely it shows up. I have a little Google search bar that if I type in failed, will that come up? What? Why is that showing like, there it is. Yeah, so I wrote about like the actual, so if you want to read my writings about it, you can come here and check that out. I've got details about like and it kind of reiterates a lot of the things that I say in the video. So it's whatever your preferred mode of getting that stuff is, or don't read it all. I don't care. But those are my thoughts on it that are over there. Okay. I think what we're well positioned to do now is, now that we have this context data, we can go to the template and plug it in, and some sort of styling. So let's return to that confirm delete page, which is still configured. Whoops, that's the wrong one. Where did it go? Course, there it is, up at the top. And we can start to fill this in. So we can say delete course. And because this is a delete view, so this is one area where where course will show up, is the delete view will populate the context with the actual name. So we were referring to it as self.object in the view, but there will be a course in the context in the template side. So we can depend on that. And let's go back to the model diagram, because I don't remember if I called it title or name. Name. Okay, so there's no title on a course, but it is the course name. And I'll leave that if block for a moment. This is, are you sure you want to delete this course? That's still accurate. So a lot of this page is going to be really accurate. Okay, so let's fire up everything here. And we're going to have to navigate directly to the page if we want to see this, because we haven't connected it to the edit page yet, which we can do pretty quickly, but I don't. I'd rather just look at this page for a moment so we can see it. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change the URL and just tack on a delete at the end. So here we go. We've got our delete course. I'm not going to click the button because it will actually delete stuff, and that's not what I want to do. So we'll come in here and add in some text. I don't know if we need if we need kind of a paragraph describing, by deleting all of these things, you're going to, this is what's going to happen by deleting this course. Yeah, that's probably something to have. But when do we display that? We only want to display that if any of those task counts exist. So there's the first thing that we want to do is a paragraph tag. We want to say if there's a tasks count or a grades count. So any one of these should be, if any one of them is positive, then we want to display the message. Or a coursework count, or a course resources count. If we've got one of those, then we want to say what do I want to say? Deleting this course will also delete, and then end it. You can refresh the page, and cool, got that. So now we can have we'll use a list, an unordered list that will make exist no matter what, because if it happens to be empty, that's fine. Oh, not li, we want unordered list, so that's ul. And in here, let's actually give this stuff some breathing room. There's no reason to have all this jammed together. We don't need any of that. And then we can say what? We can say if tasks count. Then we want to put in a list item. Tasks, and then we'll just this is going to be very, very simplistic first version. I would expect that at some point some customers kind of come back and say, actually, can I see this on this page? And that's fine. I just don't want to do that prematurely. So if we refresh the page now, we'll see, okay, where did the bullet point go? Well, we're using Tailwind, and Tailwind takes that stuff off by default because they expect you to style these things. So let's go to the version of Tailwind that I've got. I'm actually not on 2 yet. I'm still on 196 because I haven't fixed up the colors. And we'll go to unordered. Oh, come on. Unordered. How about just lists? Lists. I don't want list inside. I really love Tailwind as a framework, but sometimes when you get to the more esoteric pieces, you gotta like go dig into this stuff. So we want list disk. That's a mouthful. Class list disk. Oh, disk. There it is. Hopefully. All right. So now I think we also want that position. There's like inside and outside. Looks like it's defaulting to using outside, which I think I actually want list inside. Yeah, I want it to read more like that. The other thing that I want to do is push this down quite a bit. So we want to actually, in fact, because I'm not sure that if this, no, I am, never mind. We can give this some margin bottom of 8, and that will push the question down. And now that we just need to give some spacing to the actual bullet points themselves. So we can say, and we'll play with this as we add in the second one because it might look a little funky. So for now, we'll just say padding Y2. So that's some PY is vertical padding, Y-axis, and 2 is a fairly small amount. And I want to make it clear that this is like, there's no going back. So deleting this course will also permanently delete all of the following associated items. Ugh. I can wordsmith that later, but conveys the idea. The other thing that's pretty wide, like that'll go on all day. So let's constrain this, but wrap this in a div with a class of max width of extra large, I think. They're all hard deletes. Nunamaz. Yeah, I mentioned that. I think you might not have been here when I was talking about how, for the sake of dealing with like GDPR and anybody who wants to like really request stuff really be gone, I'm just going to take a more privacy strict stance of, if you delete it, it's really going to be deleted, and that's on you. I think that will be. I think people would generally prefer the privacy, is my guess. Well, now that just looks weird. All right, I think maybe rather than do that max width, I just need to trim this. This is just too long. Maybe think all of the following associated items is yeah, no kidding. So let's just delete all of that stuff. Let's leave it at this permanently delete. Okay, so the rest of this is fill in the blanks. We have the grades count. And I guess this actually makes sense to come after. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and reorder in the view. Not that it matters, but I want to. So grades. Oh, yeah, that's rough looking. So let's not do P2. Try P1. Still looks a little goofy, doesn't it? Let's give this lead-in pair sentence some stuff as well. Okay. That feels better to me. I don't need to make this view like the most amazing design, but I don't want it to look like really jammed together either. And we can say, what else? This will be this is where I want to put coursework. And what is this? This is completed. This is where I need it to be like a little scary. Completed student coursework. They need to recognize that if their student has done something. Yeah, I hear you. I do sometimes modify the element styles as well directly from that. So it is a good way to go. Anyway, so I want them to be aware that like if you're going to delete coursework, you need to know that you're going to impact your students. So I'm going to use the word completed to indicate that that is part of that. And then finally, the course resources. And we'll just say resources for this one. Oops. Oh, there were none. Ha. Okay. So that's what it's going to look like if there's something missing. It's just not going to appear. And to confirm that this is in fact going to be there. Whoops. We can go to the actual math class and we can say add a new resource, and we can say algorithms, which is a terrible book that I took in college. Yes, it's using the Cascade deletion from SQL to delete all of these things. That's a good question. Earlier I covered why would you use Cascade versus protect versus set null. And for my use case, to be able to conveniently and quickly delete a person's entire set of content, like if I got a request to please delete my account and it was coupled along with a GDPR and delete all my data because I'm really concerned about privacy, I would like to be able to say, let me go and I'm going to delete your school, where is it on the model here? This school model right here is the root of everything, that all of the user's data that lives up here eventually ties back to a school. So I could say delete the school and it will totally wipe out anything that the user has entered into the system with a high degree of confidence. And that's important for my application, but each application has its own constraints. So now we've got a resource on this page, and it should say resources 1. So I feel like I'm using the ORM that comes with Django, so it's what's enforcing all this stuff. So now I've got this page. It tells me everything I want to do. I bet if I deleted that, if I click the delete button right now, that would kind of work, except it would take me to a 404. And the reason it would take me to a 404 is because the success URL is to the detail page of the course, which will be the thing that we just deleted, which won't exist in the database anymore. So that doesn't make sense. So we're going to have to send someone back to the school year, probably, of where they just came from. And I think the success URL, I think the object will still be available in memory on the view before. It's like, it's going to be, cached is not the right word, but it's just going to be in memory on that view call. So we should be able to get access to the school year that's associated with the course or the grade level and send them back to that page. I don't know that we're going to get to that tonight, but that's where they should go. So to do send to school year on deletion. That should be the landing spot. All right, but that completes, I think, what I want to do for this template. And if they have nothing, then this message about deleting other things will not appear, and all of these other things will be empty as well. There'll be some padding, that's okay. So it'll basically say delete course and my unneeded course, and then the delete button. So that's totally fine with me. So I feel good about that. All right, let's return to the actual post that's going to do the deletion. And this is where I think using the edit view is not a good choice, because I don't think that it's needed, although there is a delete view down further here. Oh, come on. So what does that post look like? Yeah, with this post, you don't have to provide any content because it's going to get it from the UUID. And you can see where this post is going. Using Vim is hard. Yes, initially it is quite hard. My very first job out of college, so my first programming job, I should say, I worked for Lockheed Martin, the defense contractor, and worked on the global positioning system, ground control software. So a good, interesting first job. But day one of being there, like most jobs that you have to do, especially at a big corporation, you have to do a certain amount of compliance training. So like videos or whatever that they want you to watch. And then you have to start understanding what is it you're going to be working on. So my mentor, if you could call her that, like the person who was assigned to help me from the beginning, showed me how to get onto the Solaris system that this program was using. Program contract, that's the kind of the lingo in defense contracting. And so she got me signed into, got me a Solaris account, got me signed in, and told me to like open up, use VI and open up this text file. And the amusing part about this is, like, I'd never used VI in my entire life. She said, read this stuff, figure it out, and let me know when you have questions. So I was using this new text editor that I'd never touched on an operating system that I had never used, and was told to just left to my own devices to go read. And yeah, pretty much random string for quit. I was very confused because I didn't even know what VI was back then. Like that's how kind of green I was at programming. And for those of you that don't know, Vim is kind of famous for being hard to quit because it's a non-standard text editor. It doesn't do what you think it would do. Like I'm moving around, but I'm using J and K to do that, which you might be like, what? How's that working? Anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked into Vim, but yeah, that's it's been good to me. It's taken many years and to get used to it, but as soon as I did, I'm pretty confident in it now. I feel like I'm much faster than I might otherwise be. Okay, so we're gonna delete this old, this edit test, this post test from the edit view, because that doesn't really apply. And I just copied the delete task view, so it's going to be extremely similar to what we need to do. And we need to delete that and change it to delete. Getting kind of meta here. So change this to delete, and we don't have a task. I forgot a comma. So that will probably simplify it down to a line. We want to assert that the task is in fact deleted. And this is where, right now this test actually might pass because we haven't changed the success URL, but like I said, this success URL, the location header is going to be fine to make that the URL. But if a user actually went to that page would then be a 404 because that we just deleted the course. So it doesn't make sense in that regard. But the test itself, aside from that, is accurate. So this is where this test needs to change right here to assert that it's going to a different place. It needs to go to back to the school year, at which is most relevant. But again, I'm not really sure that I want to take that on tonight. In fact, what do I want to do? What is the next step? Where should we go? Because I've already been going for an hour and a half. How much should we go? Maybe we should finish out the feature. That's probably okay. There's not too much left to do, I think. Or I hope. We need to wire this together. That's the next step. So I'm going to steal from one of these other pages. We've got this course resource form page, and it should have on here a delete button. Here it is. And so we need to send to the delete view similarly for the course page. So we're going to come down in here and make this look the same. So I'm going to walk away from the views file for a minute. We don't actually need that up. I'm going to go into the course form, and we're going to probably have to modify. This is actually an older form, so some of the stuff that might be in here is, well, yeah, there's other stuff in here too. So this is actually going to be a fair amount of reworking, perhaps. I need to see what's in here. So we've got a surrounding flex box, which, yeah, let's bring it up together, shall we? So we want to look at, what I'm getting to is this edit page right here. It has a cancel and an update button. And there is a course copying feature, which frankly I forgot existed, but this was important at some point, and I don't remember even how to enable this anymore. It's crazy. That's a sign you've been working on an app for long enough, is like the things that you discover in here are things that you wrote. Especially, I mean, of course, may not be the case if you're working with other teammates, but it is for this context. All right, so let's do this. Let's throw in this delete button and just see what happens. Oh, I can already see how this is different. So look at this. This has a flex row, and it's got items center, which is good. But there's a difference here. Can you see it? It's this justify end. So justify end is telling this to move over here. In fact, we can inspect this row, maybe. Inspect. And if we took off justify end, then you'd see a different, I think the buttons are just going to go to the front. Okay. So that's normal Flexbox. I would expect that. But we don't want that. We want a delete button over here, and then we want the buttons to be on the other side. So what we need to do for our case is take this delete button, which I say it's a button, but it's really just a link. And we don't want to delete when it's on a create. So that's not the scenario. We only want to do that when you have in the not create setting. That's when we want delete. Okay, so I'm going to refresh the page, and you're going to see it's going to look, whoops, it's not going to work at all because I have that broken right now. Let's change this to the right URL to make this work. Okay, so now we've got that should properly work, but you can see this is where it's broken, is that the delete button and the cancel button are jammed up on each other. And what I showed a moment ago was the resource, which we have at the bottom, which we can come into the edit view, and you can see the thing is spaced out. That's what we want. We want the spacing. So what I'm going to do is we're actually done with, I think I'm done with the resource form. I'll leave it up in for a minute. It's not hurting anything. We need to put in a flex grow, because I want to force them to be as far apart as possible, and that we can put it right there. And what that'll do on this page is take up the maximum amount of space that it can to push the buttons to the farthest. And so we still get the nice cancel and update feel, and the delete button gets to be where it is. There's a problem with this though. The problem, it doesn't appear until you're on a new create, because what I just did a moment ago, well, actually that's not even true. I left the justify end on there. Maybe we can leave justify end on there and be totally okay. Let's go check it out. I'm going to return to this area, and I'm going to create a course. Do the buttons look okay? Oh, there's copy course. They do. All right. Well, cool. That was nice and easy. So we're done with the resource form. We've added the delete button and spaced it out appropriately. And so I think now we're in a spot where we can click it, and we should end up back on the same place that we were just a minute ago, with all of the information about this is what you're about to delete. Okay, time to go to the right place on success. So we're going to bring up the test and the view again. So in other words, I think where we're at now, the template is for the delete confirmations done, the button to link it in is done, and we just saw that it links to the proper place, so I don't feel like I need to check anything else there. I think really all we need to do is make sure that this ends up in the right location. So I really want it to end up where? I want it to end up on the school year detail page. So that's under the schools URLs. There's the school year detail page right here. So what I want to include is schools school year detail, and I need to have the UUID be grade level school year, whoops, UUID. Okay. With this now, this should now fail because it's going to be a different path. And it is. The question I have is, I am not 100% confident by the success URL if I can get the grade level out. So let's just try what I think is going to be like the naive version of this. I'm going to see if I can get a grade level, and probably also need a safe fallback in case there is no grade level. We'll take one piece at a time. Because never mind, there should always be a grade level. I've configured the system so that the constraint is that a course will always have a grade level, and you can't remove it. So we should be able to say self object, there's a many-to-many field on there. So that's through a many-to-many manager. So we should be able to do first, and that should always return a value. I know first is, it's kind of scary that it could return none, but if I'm modeling the system correctly, this should never return none in my estimation. So we want to change this to be the school year detail. And then I also, I guess, need to I don't want to do multiple queries, so let's put in a select related on the school year. Oops. So that will grab the school year as well. And then when we get over here, we can change. See, I'm afraid that this is going to, well, I don't know. I'm speaking out of turn. Let's just try it. Grade level, school year, UUID. Okay, does this work? No. Whoops. Oh. Because I said grade level, but it's actually grade levels because it's a many-to-many field. A school could be part of multiple grade levels. The grade levels will all be in the same school year. That is another constraint. So it doesn't matter which one I get, as long as I get one. Hey, it worked. So it must be that, well, I'm actually not sure what it must be. I don't know if the deletion hasn't committed yet. I really don't understand how this actually works, because I don't know if the delete actually occurs after. Gosh, man, that's really perplexing. And maybe that's not super obvious to you if you're not a big Django person, but think about this. If this is a delete view, and it has to get the object first, and it loads that into memory with the ORM, and that's what represents what self.object is. But then success URL is supposed to be after the deletion, right? So the object is then pointing to a database row that no longer exists. How then can it go and query on grade levels if it's not there anymore? So it's like, when does that actually get committed? I'm actually really, really curious about that. So we're going to spend like a minute or maybe two looking at the detail view and see if we can make sense of this. I don't want to belabor it, but it might be interesting. So I've got Django here, a local clone. Yeah, I don't know that actually if the ORM, you might be right, there's some kind of caching going on. The ORM in Django, I don't know that entity manager is not really like a concept that's used much in this particular ORM. It's not an object of work, or is that the right pattern? Unit of work pattern. I don't know that that's really a thing. But we can check out the detail view and see if that will shine a light on anything here. So views, generic. This is an edit view. Can look for delete. And you never used, yeah. It's a involved framework, so I don't I appreciate you trying on this. It's cool. Aha. Check that out. Right there. There answers the question. They lie. So this is why it worked. Is it does have the object, but it hasn't done the delete yet. It says, give me the success URL first, and I'm going to cache that in a local, not cache it, well, I guess it's technically a cache, but I'm going to store it in a local variable, and then I'm going to delete the object, and then I'm going to redirect. Okay, I feel much better. I was worried that I might be running into some like crazy data race condition and that this wasn't going to be reliable, and that was mildly terrifying. I'm glad that the code was so easy to quickly understand. So this success URL is not in the timeline that I thought it was. It's asking for it first, which is fantastic. Gives us the confidence that this code will be reliable. Okay, so that brings us, that's the post. There is one more test, I guess, I want to have in here. And this, by having this test, how do they surpass the GIL problem? Good question. The primary mechanism is through multiple processes, is the short answer. And well, okay, the slightly longer answer. So there's two ways about this. So when a Django application runs, and I'm talking about synchronous Django here. So Django uses WSGI, the Web Server Gateway Interface, which is Flask uses this, Pyramid uses this, lots of things use WSGI, and which means that that it can plug into GUnicorn, it can plug into uWSGI, it can plug into Apache, all of these things. Each of these work, their model of working is to have a primary, a main process that delegates, so it delegates to workers. So that's one way to get around the GIL. So if you have multiple requests coming in, then the main process is really just it's dispatching to other stuff as quickly as it can. So it's listening on the primary port. Yeah, IPC style. Yep. And it's handing it off to another process and says, like, you handle the request now, and there's some port magic stuff that goes on there to make that possible, and then the worker handles that. That's one way. The other way is that when you do I/O on when you do I/O on some of these requests, Python will can give up the GIL, and that allows other processes to work. So the workers, in certain modes, if it's certain settings, you can make it so that they will do more stuff if the GIL is given up. I know that's a crude explanation. I apologize. I'm it's getting late my time, so brain is not firing on all cylinders at this point. But hopefully that gives you an idea. Okay, let's get this last test in here. It's like an access control test. So test other, let's say other course. And it looks like I've already used this one. And maybe I do have a test for this. You're welcome. So perhaps I don't need to write this test, because now that I've used a mixin, as long as one of these tests checks it, well, then I would feel comfortable. But I'm looking at the detail test. So remember well, maybe you don't remember if you weren't here the whole time. Earlier, I extracted a chunk of reusable code that I applied to the detail view and the edit view and the delete view to get the right query set, the ORM query. And one of the things I want to check is that because of that, someone who is not authorized to access a page can't, in fact, do it. But it looks like I don't have that test. So I did check the code that I'm confident that it's working that way, but I'd like the sanity of a test to prove it. So a user may not access another user's course. That's what I'm going to test here. And we'll do that by doing, well, actually, we don't even need to do this. We can really just have any old course will suffice. So by having a factory that does not take any parameters, it means that this user and this factory are not connected to each other. So if I do the login and do a course delete, this should, well, I don't want to get check for a 200. That's not accurate. I want to get the response out, and I want to assert self. Wow, there's a lot of asserts there. Good gracious. Huh, I don't know where all those are coming from. Assert, HTTP, those are kind of fun. Because what I expect is that this will raise a not found. I'm going to try this assert. I've never actually tried it before. It's pretty descriptive. Huh? Oh. It's probably like this. In which case I don't really like it. I don't want that. I like, so I'm using PyTest for a reason. So I'd much rather say assert response status code equal 404. That's like exactly what I'm looking for. So yeah, I just feel like that reads so much better than a method. Anyway, personal preference. Not going to knock anybody that prefers a method style. Okay, so we've got all the tests for this. We've seen it delete. I haven't actually done a delete yet, so maybe we'll go do that. We'll come back to the school year, and I'm not going to delete that math one because it's convenient, but let's go down to some of these ones that have other. I think I was putting some stuff in here the other day for a different feature I was doing. Yeah, I do. And so this is a trash course, and I'm going to delete it, and it should say that it's going to delete 15 tasks. So we'll say edit. We'll say delete. It's going to delete 15. Took us back to the school year. Full loop, full success, and it's now gone from the list. Awesome. Okay. To finish this off, let's take a quick look at what we got. We'll review the diff pretty quickly. We've got our test case here, which tests for unauthenticated. It tests access control. It tests get and it tests the post. That's what we need. We've got the URL itself. We've got the actual detail view. Well, I guess this part's the mixin. That was the refactoring that we did. And yep, we've got replaced all that stuff. And then here's the new view. It works on UUID. It gets the query set. It adds all of that context data that we wanted, and then redirects to the school year page that we wanted to. Here is the page. It has delete course, which you couldn't see, but I could see in the browser. And it actually lists out the course, lists all the aspects, and gives the delete button. And then finally, there's the button itself that we expanded. So I feel good about that. And one last check is to test that we have full coverage. This should take just like 10 or 15 seconds to run. Well, actually, I think I lied. I think it's been taking a little longer these days, but let's go over here for a minute. We are going to fix 372. I'm just checking that there's nothing else that I reported on here. So yeah, I've been pretty pleased with how this flow went. This was not a very complicated issue, but it just goes to show that even a simple one, there's a bunch of aspects to consider to make it something that your customers are going to enjoy, or your users, or whatever, however you think of the people that might want to use your website. This will fire up in a second here. I'm using multiple processors and it takes a little bit longer to start up, but then once it gets going, it goes pretty quickly. And I'm running this because it will run coverage analysis as well and tell me if I'm missing any lines of code. And I am. Oh, shoot. 179. Let's go take a look. What did I miss? Oh. That's the type checking stuff. That needs to shut up. There's a no pragma, I think. If you want to like ignore. No, it's a pragma. Let's search for pragma. Yeah, there it is. So I'm making my project use 100% code coverage, but type checking does not run at runtime. So there's a way to tell the code coverage tool to not pay attention to that area and use this special comment of pragma no cover. And now if we run this again, it should report back that that line is covered because it's actually skipped. And I'm not worried about that skipping because, again, at runtime, it never runs. The type checking variable is coming from the typing module, and it is only true if it's being run by a type checking tool like MyPy. So we can have the assurance that this will be false during the actual running of the code. So that's going to run again. And then I guess we can talk briefly about, well, no, we don't need to. We'll just let this run for the next 10 seconds and then call it quits. All right, success. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So we'll commit it all. It's running through, whoops, what it failed. I'm using pre-commit, and pre-commit is a tool that runs a set of hooks on it that will check the code before commit, keep my quality up, and isort failed. So I must have imported something improperly. Oh, grade alphabetically sorts after that stuff, so it just is reordering that stuff. Cool, no problem. We add it again. We get all the stuff working, and then we say add the ability to delete a course, and that fixes number 372. We can push this up. And what you'll observe, if you've not seen that, by using that fixes attribute, by saying fixes in the commit message, it tells GitHub to go ahead and associate it with that particular issue. So get the benefit of doing that cleanup. All right. That's where I'm going to stop for this evening. Next time we will get to some more customer requests. I've got a fairly good stream of them coming in. Little modifications here and there. Some of them are bigger, and I don't know how much we'll tackle, but it depends on kind of where I am next week and what I hear from customers this week. Hopefully you learned a little bit about Django here, learned some things to take away, and I appreciate you tuning in. So with that, I'm going to bid you good night and take care.